You will never heal until you face this about your mother. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. So many of us carry wounds we cannot name, shaped not just by what our mothers did or didn't do, but by the emotional imprint they left deep within us. In today's video from Spiritual Wisdom, we explore the shadow mother, the silent force that shapes our patterns, our relationships, and even our sense of self-worth. Healing begins not by blaming, but by bravely facing what still lives inside us. What have you inherited emotionally that you're ready to release? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your truth. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're ready to walk this path of deep healing and transformation. 1. The shadow of the mother lives within you. Even if your mother is no longer physically present in your life, whether she lives far away, has passed on, or you haven't spoken in years, her energy still lives inside you. Not just as a memory, but as a deep emotional imprint, woven into the very architecture of your psyche. This invisible presence is what Carl Jung called the mother complex, a powerful, often unconscious force that continues to shape your emotions, self-worth, and the way you relate to the world. You may think you're free from her influence, but if you've ever heard her voice echo in your own self-talk, or found yourself repeating patterns in relationships that leave you feeling unworthy, unseen, or overly responsible for others' emotions, you're still moving through the shadow she left behind. Jung emphasized that this complex is not about the outer mother, but about the inner psychic image we carry, the emotional blueprint formed in childhood, made up of her gestures, her tone, her presence or absence, her pain, and her silence. This internalized mother becomes a filter, one you didn't choose, but learned to survive through. If she was critical, you might now judge yourself harshly. If she was emotionally unavailable, you might constantly seek love from those who can't offer it. If she was overwhelmed, you might feel guilty for having needs. These patterns don't dissolve on their own. They repeat until they're made conscious. The shadow mother, composed of generational trauma, unspoken sorrow, or her own unmet dreams, often hides behind your strongest reactions, your deepest insecurities, or your compulsion to fix or please. Healing doesn't happen by avoiding this inner figure. It begins the moment you stop running from her and start listening to the pain, the patterns, and the silent contracts you unconsciously made to carry her emotional burdens. Jung wrote, "Nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment, and especially on their children, than the unlived life of the parent." When your mother didn't live out her truth, whether because of culture, trauma, or limitation, you inherited more than her features. You inherited her unfinished story, but that story can end with you. When you recognize the mother complex operating inside you, you reclaim your emotional autonomy. You stop reacting from the child within and start responding as the conscious adult. You no longer seek validation from those who cannot give it, and instead begin offering yourself the nurture, protection, and acceptance you've always deserved. You no longer carry guilt for her pain or shame for her silence. You stop mothering the world and start remothering yourself. This is the path of inner liberation. It's quiet, deep, and often painful, but it's real. Facing the mother complex isn't about blaming her. It's about understanding the hidden forces that shaped you so you can break the cycle. It's about stepping into your own identity, no longer defined by someone else's wounds. And when you do, You become whole, not in spite of your past, but because you dared to face it. If you're ready to face the inner mother and reclaim your emotional freedom, comment below, "I am ready to heal from within." 2. The archetypal mother in Jungian psychology. In Jungian psychology, the mother is not just the woman who gave you life. She is an archetype, a universal psychic imprint shared by every human being. This archetype is powerful because it lives beyond memory, beyond biography, embedded in the very structure of the unconscious. Jung called her the Great Mother, and she comes with a paradox. She is both the giver of life and the one who can unconsciously limit it. She nurtures, protects, and soothes, but she also devours, controls, and restrains. Most people only see one side of her, the comforting embrace. But the other hand, the shadow of the mother, is what holds many adults emotionally captive for life. When you fail to separate your real, historical mother from the internalized archetype, distortion sets in. You start to project your unhealed emotional blueprint onto people around you. A partner becomes a rescuer. A friend becomes a judge. A boss becomes a tyrant. And you live out the same emotional wounds repeatedly because your psyche is still orbiting around that original, inner maternal image. The danger lies in this confusion. You may think you're reacting to the world in the present, but you're actually responding to echoes of the past that were never seen, felt, or integrated. For many, the real breakthrough comes when they realize that the wound is no longer about the outer mother. It's about the inner one, the emotional blueprint left behind, the unmet needs, the silent expectations, the shame and sorrow passed down without words. As Jung said, nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment, and especially on their children, than the unlived life of the parent. This unlived life becomes a psychic inheritance, one you didn't choose, but must learn to transform. Consider someone who constantly seeks validation. On the surface, it may look like low self-esteem, but underneath, there's often a deeper emotional programming. The inner mother's voice, whispering that love must be earned, that being too emotional is dangerous, that asking for support is weak. These aren't just beliefs. They are survival codes formed in the presence of the original mother, then cemented by the archetypal one. To heal, you must step into sacred inner territory. You must turn toward the mother within the psychic energy that still governs your emotions and see her clearly. Not to blame her, not to reject her, but to finally differentiate. To say, "This was your story, but it is no longer mine. This was your pain, but it does not belong to me anymore." And in doing so, you untangle yourself from a web of unconscious loyalty, from patterns that were never truly yours. This is the spiritual initiation Jung pointed to. Not an outer transformation, but an inner separation, a reclamation of the self from the grip of archetype. And only by facing this truth, this shadow of the mother, can you return to wholeness. Not by rewriting your past, but by rewriting your relationship to it. Not by creating a new identity, but by freeing the original one that was buried beneath someone else's pain. Are you ready to explore the deeper layers of your psyche and uncover the truth behind the archetypal mother? If so, comment below. I embrace the inner journey to affirm your commitment to healing and self-awareness. 3. The shadow mother and psychological imprisonment. The shadow mother is not your physical mother, but the psychological imprint she left behind, a presence that lives inside you, shaping your emotions, choices, and relationships. This shadow carries the unmet needs, silent expectations, and unresolved pain of the mother you knew or imagined. She is the consuming aspect of the archetypal mother, as Carl Jung described, the one who smothers rather than nurtures, controls rather than empowers. Her voice is subtle but powerful. It shows up in your guilt when you say no, in your fear of being too much or too different, and in the quiet self-betrayal that repeats itself in your adult life. Even if she is no longer around, physically distant, or even deceased, her energetic grip remains. You hear her not in words, but in hesitation, in shame, in that internal pull that tells you it's safer to stay small than risk being fully seen. You begin to believe that love must come at the cost of your authenticity. You shrink in relationships, overgive to feel worthy, and abandon your truth just to avoid disappointing others. This is the invisible prison, the emotional inheritance of a mother complex that Jung warned could dominate a life unconsciously. But she isn't just the wound, she's the key. The shadow mother is not only a force of limitation, she also guards the doorway to your lost power. That's the paradox. The very fear that controls you also points to the strength you've buried. The guilt you feel for wanting to be free, that's the signal. The anxiety that comes when you speak your truth, that's the threshold. And until you consciously face her, until you stop avoiding her presence within, you remain entangled in patterns that aren't truly yours. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." To face your shadow mother is not to blame or condemn your real mother. It's to reclaim the power that has been projected onto her. It's to draw back the energy you gave away as a child, the energy that was once tied to survival, approval, and emotional safety. And as you begin to see her clearly, not as a monster, but as a symbol, you dissolve the illusion that she holds power over you. This is how you begin to heal, not by running from the pain, but by walking into it with eyes open. Not by cutting ties with your past, but by transforming your relationship with the inner image that controls your present. As you do, your voice strengthens, your boundaries sharpen, and your sense of self begins to rise from the ashes of old patterns. You don't just survive, you begin to live as someone emotionally whole. And in that wholeness, you become the mother to yourself that you never had. If this message speaks to your soul, repeat after me. I recognize the shadow, and I reclaim my power. I am free to live as my true self. Type it in the comments if you're ready to break free from the guilt, release the energetic chains, and step into your healing. 4. The internal mother, the silent dictator. The internal mother, what Carl Jung called the imago, isn't just a memory of your real mother. It's a powerful psychic blueprint etched into your subconscious. This inner figure becomes a silent authority, shaping how you love, how you feel safe, how you set limits, and even how you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. Over time, her voice becomes your inner critic. Not because you chose it, but because you were too young to know you could refuse it. That voice, the one that says, "You're not enough, don't try too hard, stay small," is not your own. It is the residue of a mother's unhealed wounds transferred to you through tone, silence, protection, control, or neglect. Without realizing it, Many people walk through life ruled by this inner mother. Her fear becomes your hesitation. Her shame becomes your silence. Her expectations become the invisible ceiling you keep hitting whenever you try to rise. She's not just in your memories. She's in your choices, who you love, how you trust, whether you take the risk or shrink back. This is the mother complex. It's not about blaming your mother. It's about recognizing that your nervous system, your emotional body, and your core beliefs were shaped by someone who had their own unresolved pain. Until you face this inherited structure, it will continue to sabotage your freedom from within. Healing begins the moment you stop identifying with that inner voice. You start to observe it instead of obey it. You notice the guilt that arises when you put yourself first, the fear that creeps in when you stand in your truth, the anxiety that tightens when you disappoint someone else. And then you ask, whose voice is this really? That question is revolutionary. Because once you realize that this voice is not your own, but an internalized authority, you begin to loosen its grip. Jung believed that healing required individuation, the courageous process of separating from inherited psychic patterns to discover who you truly are beneath them. This work isn't clean or easy. It often feels like betrayal. But it's not betrayal. It's liberation. You are not abandoning your mother when you heal. You are breaking the chain for both of you. You are becoming the self she never got to become. You are raising your consciousness above the trauma she unconsciously passed down. And in doing so, you become the healing she didn't have access to. When you step out of the emotional cage built by your past, you reclaim your birthright to live as yourself, not a shadow of someone else's unlived life. The internal mother will try to keep you safe by keeping you small. But your soul came here to grow. And true growth means questioning every voice inside you that tells you to dim your light. Because that voice is not the voice of your truth. It is the echo of a survival pattern. And once you see it, you can choose differently. Not by fighting her, but by loving yourself more deeply than she ever could. If this message helped you recognize the silent voice shaping your life, leave a like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss another awakening insight. And if you're ready to reclaim your inner freedom, type in the comments, I choose my voice over the inner critic. 5. Separation, the necessary ego breakthrough. Separation from the mother complex is not an act of rebellion, but a sacred rite of inner evolution. Carl Jung called it symbolic separation, a necessary break from the unconscious bonds of guilt, dependency, and emotional loyalty that keep you tethered to an inner image of the mother. This isn't about rejecting the woman who gave you life. It's about releasing the emotional contracts you unknowingly signed long ago, the ones that still influence your voice, your choices, and the way you move through the world. Psychological maturity requires this second birth. Your body may have been born decades ago, but your soul must be born anew. And that birth often begins with pain. You may feel disoriented, like you're betraying something sacred, but you're not. You're honoring your soul's right to breathe without asking permission. The inner mother formed through years of childhood. Imprinting has likely shaped your inner world more than you realize. Her fears become yours. Her silence becomes your shame. Her expectations mold your identity. A woman once said, "I don't know what I want, I only know what she would approve of." That moment was her awakening. She wasn't living her life. She was inhabiting a version of herself built to maintain the bond. This is how the mother complex survives, through unconscious obedience, emotional entanglement, and inherited dreams. But the moment you pause and ask, "What do I truly want?" you are already breaking the spell. The grief that comes with separation is real. It's not just about losing a bond. It's about mourning the self that never had space to fully form. This sorrow, though heavy, is sacred. It carves room for truth. As the dependency dissolves, you begin to notice your own voice beneath the noise. Your choices become clearer. Your needs stop apologizing. And your life begins to align not with what was expected, but with what is true. Jung wrote, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent." When you remain enmeshed, you carry not just love, but also unspoken sorrow, unfulfilled longing, and the echoes of someone else's narrative. To heal is not to sever love. It is to reclaim authorship. It is to say, "I honor your story, but I will not repeat it." This is the moment the sovereign self emerges, not hardened, not detached, but clear and rooted. The guilt fades. The fear shrinks. What remains is the strength to live as yourself, unapologetically, wholeheartedly, and finally free. If you're ready to take the courageous step toward true inner freedom, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more transformative insights like this. Tap the bell so you never miss a video that supports your soul's rebirth. And comment below, "I choose my sovereign self," to affirm your journey. 6. Symptoms of an unhealed mother wound. Have you ever felt a persistent inner voice that tells you you're not good enough, no matter how much you achieve? That's not just low self-esteem. It could be the echo of what Carl Jung called the mother complex. This invisible psychic pattern often stems from an unhealed mother wound, and it shapes much of our emotional lives in adulthood until we face it head-on. Let's explore 9 core psychological symptoms that may point to an unresolved mother wound. As you listen, check in with yourself. These patterns aren't signs of weakness. They are messages from your soul, asking to be healed. First, there's the inner critic, a constant mental loop of self-doubt and harsh judgment. This is not your authentic voice. It often originates from internalized maternal disapproval or perfectionist standards. If your mother figure was overly critical, emotionally distant, or emotionally inconsistent, you may have learned to police yourself harshly in an attempt to earn love or avoid rejection. Jung once said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent." That burden often shows up as the voice of the inner critic. Second, you might experience a fear of autonomy, an unconscious resistance to becoming fully independent. This can manifest as clinging to relationships that no longer serve you, difficulty making decisions alone, or sabotaging your own growth. The child within is still seeking approval or fearing punishment from the mother figure. Third, guilt and inherited shame weigh heavily. Sometimes this guilt doesn't even feel like it belongs to you. It may be ancestral or absorbed from a parent who carried deep emotional wounds. You might feel guilty for wanting more, for expressing anger, or even for simply existing as yourself. Fourth, people-pleasing and self-abandonment become survival strategies. You mold yourself to meet the emotional needs of others, often at the cost of your own authenticity. Your sense of worth is built on external validation. But remember, constantly betraying yourself just to be accepted only deepens the wound. Fifth, there's a tendency to repeat toxic relationship patterns. Unconsciously, you may be drawn to partners who reflect the emotional unavailability or manipulation you experienced as a child. These aren't failures, they're invitations to heal. Sixth, the haunting feeling of not enough becomes your emotional baseline. No matter how much you do, achieve, or give, it never feels like it's sufficient. This belief is not based on truth, but on emotional conditioning passed down through unresolved maternal energy. Seventh, your creativity and self-expression may feel blocked. You may struggle to speak your truth, pursue your passions, or share your authentic voice. An unhealed mother wound often shuts down the feminine principle within the part of you that gives life to dreams, ideas, and joy. Eighth, this wounding doesn't just live in your mind. It often shows up as somatic symptoms. Chronic fatigue, anxiety, autoimmune issues, or tightness in the chest can all be signals from the body that the inner child is still holding on to trauma. As Bessel van der Kolk reminds us in The Body Keeps the Score, trauma is not just an event that took place sometime in the past. It is also the imprint left by that experience on the mind, brain, and body. Ninth, many experience a sense of spiritual emptiness, a disconnection from the feminine principle. Intuition, receptivity, nurturance leaves you feeling ungrounded, even if life looks successful on the surface. There may be a longing to reconnect with something sacred, soft, and nourishing inside you, but you don't know how. These symptoms are not random. They are sacred clues pointing you toward healing. You are not broken. You are becoming. When you begin to face the wound, you reclaim your voice, your body, your emotions, and your spirit. Healing the mother's wound doesn't mean blaming your mother. It means freeing yourself from the unconscious patterns that keep you stuck in pain. As we explore these 9 symptoms of the unhealed mother wound, remember, awareness is the first step to liberation. If this message resonates with your inner truth, affirm your healing journey by commenting, "I am ready to face the wound and reclaim my power." Your presence here shows your courage and willingness to grow. Let's walk the path of deep healing together. 7. Embracing the shadow mother as inner ritual. Facing the shadow mother is never a surface-level task. It is an initiation, a descent into the deep interior of the psyche, where ancestral pain, inherited patterns, and emotional imprints reside. She is not simply the woman who raised you, but a living force within a blueprint shaping your beliefs about love, safety, and self-worth. Until this inner figure is confronted, she remains a silent dictator, influencing your choices, sabotaging your relationships, and distorting your sense of identity. You may find yourself endlessly seeking validation, fearing rejection, or betraying your own truth just to avoid the silent disapproval that still echoes inside you. Carl Jung offered us a profound key: active imagination. This method allows us to speak with these inner figures directly, not through logic, but through symbol, vision, and emotional honesty. You might see her as distant, cold, overbearing, or even devouring. But the goal is not to destroy her. It is to make her conscious, to reclaim the energy you've buried in fear, grief, or obedience. Every inner dialogue, every visualization, every symbolic gesture is a step toward integration, where the mother no longer controls your psyche, but becomes a part of your inner wholeness. Ritual is the language of the soul. In this work, Ritual doesn't mean ceremony for others to see. It means personal, symbolic acts that signal to the unconscious mind that transformation is underway. Writing letters to the mother you never send, meditating with her image and giving voice to all the words you never spoke, creating spaces to cry, rage, forgive. These are not small acts. They are sacred ruptures in the old identity, breaking the illusion of the perfect mother or the monstrous mother, both of which are myths. No mother is perfect. And even the shadow mother holds her own unhealed story. Seeing this does not excuse harm, but it frees you from carrying what was never yours to hold. Grief is necessary. You must grieve who she couldn't be. Grieve the parts of you that hardened around her absence or control. Grieve the innocence that was shaped by her silence. This grief is holy. It prepares the ground for rebirth. As Jung said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. The death you experience is not physical, but symbolic. The death of the false self, the identity built to survive, to please, to adapt. And from that death, something sacred arises, the sovereign self. When the shadow dissolves, what returns is what was always yours. Your intuition, your softness, your inner knowing, your self-trust. You stop needing her voice to guide you because your own voice becomes enough. You no longer chase approval. You become your own nurturer. What once felt like a curse becomes the doorway to wisdom. You do not escape the mother. You alchemize her. You transform inherited pain into embodied power. This is the work, and it changes everything. Let's create a sacred space of support and healing in the comments. If this message resonates with your journey, comment, "I honor my shadow as part of my healing." When you see someone else comment this, take a moment to reply with encouragement or leave a heart. This simple act helps us nurture a compassionate, awakened community where no one walks this path alone. 8. Forgiveness is not the goal. Freedom is. Forgiveness is often presented as the ultimate key to healing, but that belief can become a trap. Real healing is not about rushing to forgive. It's about integration. It's about owning your truth, not glossing over it with spiritual cliches. When you force yourself to forgive before you've processed the pain, you're not healing. You're spiritually bypassing the very wound that needs your attention. Suppressing your anger or grief in the name of being good only buries the truth deeper into your nervous system. Freedom doesn't come from denying what hurt you. It comes from finally facing it without flinching. Carl Jung reminds us that nothing changes until it is accepted. Acceptance is not passive. It's an act of courage. It means reclaiming the parts of yourself that were silenced, dismissed, or denied in the name of peace. True healing requires you to confront what happened and how it shaped you, not to blame, but to bring your inner landscape into alignment. You don't owe reconciliation to anyone who refuses to see or own their role in your pain. You owe it to yourself to stop waiting for an apology that may never come, and start listening to the voice within you that has been screaming to be heard. Take the example of a woman named Elise. She spent decades trying to forgive her emotionally manipulative mother. She went to therapy, practiced gratitude, wrote letters of compassion, but none of it worked. Because she had skipped the one essential step, speaking her truth. Only when she admitted to herself how deep the wound really was, how unseen and unloved she had felt, did she finally begin to heal. She stopped performing forgiveness and began honoring her pain. That shift changed everything. Her voice returned, Her boundaries solidified. Her self-trust bloomed. Reconciliation is not the requirement. Ownership is. The moment you stop chasing external validation and start affirming your lived experience, you cut the energetic cords that keep you bound. Freedom is not granted by the other person. It's a self-claimed inheritance. You break the cycle the moment you stop editing your story to protect the one who hurt you. You rise when you decide your peace matters more than preserving a false image of family harmony. You grow when you declare that your truth is holy even if no one else believes it. This journey is not about bitterness. It's about liberation. You are not here to shrink yourself in order to make others feel comfortable. You are not here to silence your pain so someone else doesn't feel guilty. You are here to rise into the fullness of who you were always meant to be. When you reclaim your story, your power returns. When you speak what was once unspeakable, your soul begins to breathe again. When you draw a line and say, "This is where it ends," you don't just protect yourself, you protect the generations to come. Healing is not polite. It's raw. It's honest. It's fierce. And it is yours. Now close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let go of the need to make peace with anyone but yourself. Freedom begins when you stop performing forgiveness and start honoring your truth. Repeat after me. I release the need to be understood. I choose freedom over forced forgiveness. 9. Rebirth. Life beyond the mother complex. Healing the mother's wound is not the conclusion of your journey. It is the beginning of your return to authenticity. As you begin to release the inherited roles you've played, roles built around seeking approval, suppressing your truth, or playing small to feel safe, you begin to meet a version of yourself untouched by performance. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." In this new inner landscape, you no longer wait for permission to be whole, you simply are. You stop seeking to be chosen because you choose yourself. And from that act of inner claiming, something remarkable happens. You begin to live from sovereignty rather than survival. This shift is not just emotional, it's a rebirth. You no longer operate from the child within, hoping for love to be returned in the form you never received. Instead, you mature into the adult who gives love without self-abandonment and receives love without fear. The patterns that once governed your relationships, neediness, people-pleasing, emotional withdrawal, lose their grip. You stop repeating history. You stop recreating your pain in every partner, every friendship, every dynamic. You no longer need someone to mirror your wounds. You seek those who can meet your wholeness, not complete your brokenness. And in this space of clarity, relationships transform. They become sacred containers for mutual growth, not emotional battlegrounds for repressed wounds. You speak without shrinking. You walk away without guilt. You set boundaries not to punish, but to protect your peace. This isn't detachment, it's alignment. Your connections no longer come from fear of being alone. They come from the joy of being fully seen. That joy could never grow in the soil of your past, because your past was rooted in scripts you didn't write. Now, you're the author. Yet this healing is never just yours. It echoes through your lineage. You become what some call a conscious ancestor, the one who ends the pattern, who breaks the cycle, who chooses differently. Jung reminded us, the greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived life of the parent. When you choose to live fully beyond your mother's fears, beyond her wounds, beyond her limitations, you liberate more than just yourself. You liberate the generations before you who were never allowed to. And you create a future where the children born from your freedom will never carry what you had to heal. You become the turning point. So this journey, as difficult and sacred as it is, isn't about blaming the mother. It's about meeting the shadow she left within you, seeing it clearly, and transmuting it into light. You do not reject her. You reintegrate her, piece by piece, until what remains is the wisdom, not the wound. Until what emerges is a self no longer haunted by the past, but illuminated by it. A self that finally remembers, I was never broken. I was only buried. And now I rise. To honor your rebirth beyond the mother complex, declare your transformation. Comment below, I choose myself, as a powerful affirmation that you are no longer waiting to be validated. You are stepping into your wholeness. Your words might be the light someone else needs to begin their own healing journey. 10. Final reflection. Jungian individuation is not just a concept, it's a reckoning. It is the painful, courageous transition from inherited suffering to inner sovereignty. To individuate is to break the cycle, to step away from unconscious patterns passed down through bloodlines, and to finally become your own. It begins with rupture, the kind that forces you to see that the life you've been living was constructed on someone else's blueprint. It continues with grief, the grief of losing illusions, roles, and versions of yourself that were created for survival, not authenticity. And then, if you stay the course, it brings rebirth, a sense of emerging from the ruins, not just alive, but awake. Carl Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." This is the call to turn inward, not to escape the world, but to face the internal architecture that built your entire emotional reality. The shadow you carry, the mother wound you inherited, the voices that shaped your self-worth, they live inside you. But they are not you. When you dare to look within, not just with curiosity, but with fierce compassion, you begin the sacred work of remembering your true self, the one who was never broken, only buried. The shift happens subtly at first. You stop reacting and start responding. You question old loyalties. You catch the echo of your mother's voice in your own self-talk, and you choose, consciously, to replace it with something kinder, something truer. You realize that you're no longer seeking to be chosen. You choose yourself. And that simple act of choosing yourself is a radical revolution. You are no longer a character written by generational pain. You are now the author. The pen is in your hand, the page is blank, and what you write next will no longer be a reenactment. It will be truth. It will be freedom. You begin to see that healing is not linear, nor is it ever really done. Sometimes the old ache comes back, not to torment you, but to test you, to ask, will you abandon yourself again, or will you stay? And each time you stay, you deepen your roots. You remember that you are not here to fix the past. You are here to transform it, to feel what others suppressed, to speak what others silenced, to live what others only dreamed of. And in doing so, you become a conscious ancestor, a soul who refused to pass the pain forward, a human who met the wound and became the medicine. This is the gift of individuation, not just to awaken for yourself, but to awaken the future through your example. Thank you for joining us on this deeply personal and transformative journey. Healing is never easy, especially when it leads us back to the roots of our pain. But remember, True liberation begins when we bravely confront the emotional imprint left by the mother figure within. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who may need it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Be sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful insight that could change your life. Until next time, stay aware, stay grounded, and keep walking the path of healing and truth. If you are God's chosen ones, never reveal these 5 things to anyone. A fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back. Proverbs 29:11. In a world that thrives on oversharing, true wisdom lies in knowing what to keep sacred. God has entrusted each of us with divine plans, blessings, and revelations, but not everything is meant to be shared with the world. Some truths are too powerful, too fragile to be spoken before their time. Are you protecting the treasures that God has placed within you? Today, we'll uncover 5 things that God's chosen ones must keep hidden to safeguard their destiny. Make sure to watch until the end, because the last one is the most crucial. If this message resonates with you, comment below and share your thoughts. Let's grow in wisdom together. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to help spread the Word of God. Now, let's dive in. 1. God's plans for your life before they are fulfilled. God, in His infinite wisdom, has carefully orchestrated every detail of your life with divine precision and purpose. Yet, His plans require time, preparation, and the right season to manifest. Revealing these plans prematurely can expose you to unnecessary opposition, confusion, or even sabotage. If you are one of God's chosen ones, there are certain things you must guard closely and never reveal to just anyone. These sacred truths are meant to be nurtured in faith, protected in wisdom, and revealed only in divine timing. The prophet Habakkuk reminds us in Habakkuk 2:3, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it lingers, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." Consider the story of Joseph in Genesis 37. God planted a vision of greatness within him, revealing that he would one day rise to a position of power. However, when Joseph eagerly shared his dream with his brothers, their jealousy consumed them, and they sought to destroy him. His path to destiny became a journey of betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment. Though God's promise was fulfilled, the hardship he endured teaches us an invaluable lesson. Divine plans are fragile in their early stages. Like a seed planted in the soil, a vision must be nurtured with patience and discernment before it can flourish. Even Jesus himself understood the importance of timing. In John 7:6, he told his disciples, "My time has not yet come." This is a profound truth. Just because God has spoken a promise over your life does not mean it is time to proclaim it to the world. Delay is not denial. It is divine preparation. Type, "God's timing is perfect," if you trust that His plans for your life are unfolding at the right moment. Let's walk in faith and patience, knowing He is preparing the way. 2. Future plans and visions. Your God-given vision is sacred. It is not meant to be broadcasted for public validation. It is a covenant between you and the Almighty, a divine assignment that requires wisdom, discernment, and silence. The Bible reminds us in Habakkuk 2:3 that every vision has its appointed time. It may not come to pass immediately, but it will surely be fulfilled in God's perfect timing. The waiting period is not a delay, but a season of preparation, a time when God refines you, strengthens your faith, and shields you from premature exposure. Consider Nehemiah, the man entrusted with rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. He did not go around announcing his plans to everyone. Instead, he worked in silence, carrying a tool in one hand and a sword in the other. Nehemiah 4:17. He understood that some missions demand quiet preparation, for not everyone will support or understand what God has placed in your heart. The enemy seeks to attack before you are fully ready, and sometimes even those closest to you may unknowingly discourage you. This is why silence is not just wisdom, it is protection. It is a spiritual discipline that allows your vision to take deep root before it is exposed to the world. When God gives you a calling, a dream, or a divine revelation, guard it with care. Speak only when necessary, and to those who have been divinely placed in your life to uplift you. Mary, the mother of Jesus, understood this well. When the angel Gabriel revealed to her the miraculous birth of the Messiah, she did not go about proclaiming it to everyone. Instead, she treasured these things in her heart, trusting that God Himself would bring them to pass. Likewise, your spiritual awakening requires trust in God's process. The dreams He has planted within you are like seeds they need time to grow, away from the harsh winds of doubt, criticism, and negativity. So, what should you keep to yourself? First, do not share your vision with those who lack spiritual understanding, for they may ridicule what they cannot comprehend. Second, be cautious about discussing your struggles prematurely. God is working behind the scenes, and sharing too soon may invite unnecessary obstacles. Third, guard your spiritual revelations, for they are meant to guide you, not to be debated with skeptics. Fourth, do not disclose every step of your progress. There is power in moving in silence. Lastly, be selective with your personal prayers. Some things are meant to be between you and God alone. Your journey of faith is sacred, and discernment is key. Trust in God's timing. Trust in His ability to make things known when the moment is right. Keep your faith strong, your heart guarded, and your vision protected. Remember, what God has ordained for you will manifest at the perfect time, not a moment too soon, not a second too late. Stay steadfast and let your spiritual awakening unfold as God intended. If you believe in the vision God has placed in your heart and are ready to walk in wisdom, repeat after me. I receive divine guidance for my future. I trust God's timing and wisdom completely. 3. Your personal struggles or weaknesses in detail. God created you with a divine purpose, a path uniquely designed for your spiritual journey. But understand this, not everyone around you is meant to know the intricate details of your life. In today's world, where social media and oversharing are the norm, many mistake transparency for wisdom. But hear me clearly, your struggles, your revelations, and your divine assignments are not for public consumption. Some things must remain between you and God. The Apostle Paul reminds us in 2 Corinthians 12:9, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Paul acknowledged his weaknesses not to invite the scrutiny of others, but to magnify the grace of God. He understood the difference between surrendering his struggles to God and exposing them to those who might manipulate, misunderstand, or misuse them. Take a moment to reflect on the story of Samson in Judges 16:17. He revealed the secret of his strength to Delilah, believing that she truly cared for him. Instead, she used that knowledge to bring about his downfall. The issue was not just that Samson trusted the wrong person. It was that he shared something sacred, something that should have remained between him and God. When you reveal what should be concealed, you give others the power to weaken your spiritual foundation. Even Jesus, in all his perfection, understood the power of discretion. Luke 5:16 tells us, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." He didn't share his deepest revelations with the crowd, but entrusted them to a select few, his disciples. He understood that not every truth should be spoken to just anyone, because not all hearts are prepared to receive what is holy. Stay connected with our community of faith by subscribing to our channel. Here, we share divine wisdom to strengthen your spirit and guide you in guarding your heart. Remember, God's grace is at work in you, shaping you in private for his greater purpose. Let him be your source of strength. Subscribe now and walk this journey of faith with us. 4. The depth of your spiritual strength or weakness. Throughout history, those who walk closely with God have understood the power of discretion. Not everything should be spoken aloud, for the spiritual realm is alive with forces beyond what the eye can see. Revealing too much can leave you exposed to spiritual attacks. As 1 Peter 5:8 warns, "The enemy prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour." This is why God's chosen ones must guard their hearts, their wisdom, and their spiritual journey with great care. David, a man after God's own heart, knew this well. When he faced Goliath in 1 Samuel 17, he did not boast about his spiritual strength or proclaim his divine anointing to everyone around him. Instead, he moved with humility and faith, relying solely on God's power to deliver him. Likewise, Jesus himself demonstrated the importance of privacy in spiritual matters. Luke 5:16 tells us that he often withdrew to pray in secret, strengthening his connection with the Father without seeking public attention. This teaches us that certain aspects of our spiritual lives must remain between us and God. If you've made it this far, comment, "I'm strengthening my spirit" below. Your engagement helps us grow together on this spiritual journey. 5. Private conversations with God. In Matthew 6:6, Jesus teaches us a profound truth. "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." This verse reveals a divine principle. Some revelations are too sacred to be exposed to the world's scrutiny. When God calls you, he often begins in the quiet places, where his voice can be heard without interference. If you are among God's chosen ones, there are certain things you must guard with wisdom, keeping them between you and him. Think about Moses at the burning bush. Exodus 3. God did not declare his plan for Israel's deliverance in a crowded assembly. Instead, he called Moses into solitude, into a sacred and private encounter. The moment was personal and powerful, not meant for the ears of those who might doubt or discourage. Likewise, Mary, the mother of Jesus, understood the importance of keeping divine revelations close to her heart. When the angel Gabriel told her she would bear the Son of God, Luke 1:26-38, she did not rush to broadcast this news. Instead, As Luke 2:19 tells us, she treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. There is divine wisdom in knowing what to share and what to guard. If this message resonates with you, comment below, treasuring his whispers, to embrace divine wisdom and deepen your connection with God. As God's chosen ones, we are called to walk in wisdom, faith, and discernment. Some truths are meant to be kept between you and God, guiding your spiritual journey without interference. By guarding these sacred aspects of your life, you remain aligned with His divine purpose. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like this video, share it with others who seek spiritual wisdom, and subscribe to our channel, Spiritual Wisdom. Make sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming insights on faith, transformation, and divine purpose. Stay blessed, and see you in the next video.